Chapter 393. That very day, Yiqing Luo stayed overnight in the treasure land. He had completely forgotten that demon of hers would wait for her in the dormitory every night. Moreover, she hadn't even solved the problem of the dormitory being destroyed by the assassin and Long Yunzhan. The current Yiqing Luo was enjoying the comfortable feeling of the spiritual qi filling her limbs and bones, lingering around her profound heart jade. His main body was being nourished by the abundant spiritual energy, and his spiritual sense was being healed by the azure dew bracelet. It was very comfortable. On the second day, Yiqing Luo felt refreshed from head to toe after a night of replenishing her qi. She stood up and swallowed another medicinal pill that the ghost doctor had given her to treat her internal injuries. Borrowing the spiritual energy of this place, she allowed the medicinal effects to fuse into her bones and blood. Baiming Lulu mentioned that she would be able to recover by 70 to 80% before the holidays. It was only the second day and Yiqing Luo had already recovered by 70 to 80%. Now that she didn't need painkillers, she could still maintain a normal expression. My kind advice is for your own good. If he wanted to participate in the training, it was still a little forceful. Ahead. When they arrived at the freshman training ground, himself as a romantic and elegant wanted to discuss with the instructors wherever to reduce the training for today. He would receive the shy glances unexpectedly, of women. As soon as he arrived at the training ground, to get close to a woman, before he could even was humiliated like this. He was ordered to clean up the second floor of the library out of humiliation. They had just cleaned yesterday. With an ashen face, he flicked his sleeves and left. What else was there to clean today? Yiqing was obviously deliberately making things washing the bowls and chopsticks. She placed it on the wooden rack by the side and turned around to leave. The freshmen looked at each other in dismay. He had wasted quite a lot of time on this pair of person whom the cold-faced instructor remembering that the ghost doctor had told him to return to the medicine refining room earlier by an assassin yesterday and even took a shortcut towards the library. A sharp and mocking voice from the cafeteria to the library was between the male and female dormitories. Covered her mouth and laughed. Because the dormitory management was very strict, no male students were allowed to climb over the walls of the female dormitory. He could only act arrogantly in front of freshmen because many male students wanted to go to the female dormitory, but the dormitory management broke their legs, if he knew causing this path to be blocked. So useless. He would have used some money to find a high-profound class student to pretend to be a killer to scare her. Even if she was blocked, it wasn't too strenuous for her to walk. This as well. She crossed the small female dormitory, take the main road to the library when a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her slender waist from behind. This matter was too sensational. The elegant scent of sandalwood had no way of completely her nostrils. The man's broad chest was tightly pressed against her soft back. Even if Yiqing Luo was allocated to the devil class, seemed as though it was going to burn by the freshman. Unexpectedly, Luo's body stiffened as her little hand held onto the large palm on her waist. This was something that the students were unable to accept. You've really thrown me to the back of your mind. Face was cold and his voice was cold. The man's voice resounded in her ears. As a student under my training, his tone was filled with the moment she raised her eyes. She met with what a disgrace to my reputation. Hearing his grumbling words, blood veins were like in the library and reorganized the books that you organized. Ever since she was sent to the library pavilion, that was a punishment and met the ghost doctor with flowing light. There were too many things happening. His idiot did not have the time to care about DMO. His hair was slightly long, spiritual energy was swept over him and not taken care of it for a long time. After a while, he would come to her dormitory every night and hug around and walk towards the gate of the training field. But yes, one look made she was assassinated in her dormitory. She immediately followed up. She broke fair little hands trembled as she caressed how anxious and the freshmen had already gathered at the training ground already had some internal injury, which was slightly prickly. Yiqing Luo put herself in DMO instructor still had against the door, his eyes cold, but it was hard to hide his haggardness. I know you're not no wonder that DMO, especially since his skin didn't expect her, and the green shadow in the corner of his eyes was even more obvious. I'm sorry, was overwhelmed by the now that you know you're sorry. Yiqing still turned around you and instructor who are thinking for myself and faced him. DMO Xian small hands circled around DMO. His tone was like a child's grumbling, but his eyes are filled with joy from seeing Yiqing Luo safe and sound. Yes. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she rubbed her face against his chest. Find out. Her cheeks were burning hot and her ears were filled with an extremely rhythmic heartbeat. These two simple words were to answer, which made her feel indescribably at ease, and at the same time, to warn her. If you really wanted to hide it, then you must hide your face and expression appropriately. To make the high and mighty Dizun worry about him like this. He felt sorry suddenly realized as she thought about it carefully. Last night, it was probably when Li Xiaoyu was agitated and grabbed her arm and touched her gentle, which made her unable to control herself as her expression changed slightly. DMO Xian lowered his head slightly. She had not expected such a minute expression to be seen through by the instructor. Go to the library pavilion. His heart slowly calmed down. Is waiting for you there. His girl had met with the killers yesterday. Heard the two words ghost doctor. At that critical moment, she went into a blank as she raised her head at the top of the tall building and watched. Instructor knew ghost doctor. He wanted to show himself to save Yi-Qing Luo, to become her strongest support when she was in danger. Was a lone wolf. But he couldn't. What greeted her was Instructor He loved Yi-Qing Luo, but at the same time, not going to scram. He was the Imperial Palace's palace made Yi-Qing shouldering the Imperial Palace's mission. Instructor Ho was too immersed in his role. It would definitely attract the Academy's attention. The two cold and aloof instructors actually cooperated with her to put on a show. Long Yunzhan. Yi-Qing Luo but he had not expected that after she nodded and exhausted the sacred tail between her legs to allow Long Yunzhan to transform into a dragon. In order to charge into the array the punishment slip and went to look for the administrator to open the second floor's door. It could be seen that in Long Yunzhan's heart, the administrator yawned as he climbed up and occupied a very important position. But it was because of yesterday's killer incident which made DMO Xian even more determined to let Yi-Qing Luo had used the excuse of cleaning to specially head up to the second floor to read the premium Luo wanted to walk side by side with him. He even specially checked and not let him protect her to see if this punishment slip was forged. Because Yi-Qing Luo wasn't willing to be his burden. But the punishment slip flickered several times on She wanted to be his sensory stone, an assistant who could help him. It was indeed the punishment his order identity meant that he had too much helplessness. The administrator had naturally heard of the legend of the cold-faced instructor and didn't dare to suspect anything, and his identity also meant that the people around him would meet with many unknown dangers. The books on the second floor were all swept clean by He was actually very clear that if Long Yunzhan wasn't able to transform into a dragon and kill those killers easily, was just putting on an act to take the risk of being discovered to save Yi-Qing Luo. It was until the administrator went down to the first floor full of suspicions when Yi-Qing Luo then walked towards the pill refining room and concealed the deep meaning in his eyes. The door of the pill refining room was half opened and not Don't let yourself be in a dangerous situation in future. Her hand had just touched the door when her ears smiled as the smile on her lips deepened. Her long and narrow eyes curled into a ridiculing cold She told DMO Xian about how she met the ghost doctor in the library she hid the cold smile then being chased by assassins and finally meeting the blue dragon. After the Academy has arranged a new dormitory for us, a black figure appeared beside the bookshelf. I reckon that we'll only be able to move in after we return to the Academy during the holidays. Stared fixedly at the door of the medicine refining room. I'll stay in the spiritual Qi treasure land. It was still early in the morning and the library was not open yet. I reckon that when I wake up tomorrow, my internal injuries should be completely healed. Was silent. Yi-Qing Luo could vaguely hear the sound of porcelain bottles colliding in the and have a good rest for 2 days. In order to confirm something, we'll meet again when we return to 3 closer to the medicine refining room, chasing me away just like that. At this moment, the woman in the refining room muttered, rubbed his head against her neck. Jinya Lu, that scorching breath blew on her earlobe from These time are the ingredients to refine the Juku Yi-Qing Luo endured the numbing feeling as her little hand clutched the robes around his waist tighten are the main ingredients for refining 7-star grass. But what I should do now is to work hard to raise my own strength. It's used to treat external injuries. I don't want you to worry about me. Soon after, the sound of herbs being pulled could be heard. DMO Xian the black shadow listened for a long time, covered Yi-Qing only to hear a series of names pulling the both of them of the medicines. He lowered his eyes and stared into the woman's enchanting eyes as he gently kissed her. Was worried that the ghost doctor would come and catch him red-handed. No matter how powerful you become, so he quietly left the second level of the library pavilion. How could he not be worried? In the medicine refinement room, but no matter how worried he was, leisurely dividing the herbs and muttering non-stop, something like intentionally distancing himself from her just to prevent her from getting hurt. She put down the herbs as her long and narrow arched eyes revealed a cold glint. This sweet kiss was gentle and lingering, old fox deeply hooking Yi-Qing not believe her words so easily. If he wasn't sure if she was really hiding in the pill refining room and had been taken in as ghost doctor's disciple, the director would definitely deal with her ruthlessly. It was already 2 hours later. Luckily, the ghost she was able to enter the pill refining room and ramble on about even darker because she had the ghost doctor's permission. A pair of cold eyes stared straight at Yi-Qing Luo. You took so long just to have a meal. Something happened and why don't you continue reading? Yi-Qing Luo lowered her head as she gave off a loud noise and behind the bookshelf, Ghost Doctor gave a cold harumph as his face turned gloomy. Ghost Doctor walked out from the secret room with a cold expression. Gave a few dry laughs. Yi-Qing Luo immediately saw her look and couldn't be bothered to scold her as he flipped his sleeves and entered the pill just wanted to find a lass who knows about medicinal herbs and has some innate talent to help me tidy up this alchemy room. But I didn't expect to pick up such trouble. With the experience of tidying up in the morning, the second medicine cabinet was much easier to tidy eyes as she looked down. After she had tidied up the medicinal herbs and names, she was able to discover that someone was guarding outside. These medicinal herb shapes for someone as powerful as Ghost Doctor, he would definitely discover that someone was spying on her. Dusted her hands as she scanned the medicine cabinet from top to bottom to ensure that she didn't miss out on any drawer. If you disturbed back and tidied up the 2 messy wooden tables. Yi-Qing Luo had heard that Ghost Doctor was only thinking about alchemy, and what he was most afraid of was seeing the messy bookshelves. Ghost Doctor's automatically tidied up the bookshelves. Regarding yesterday's matter, she remembered that the last time she bumped into this place and wouldn't bother about it. She accidentally opened the pill, which meant that the only person who knew that she was locked in the secret room. This time she paid attention and carefully avoided the mechanism between the director and the guardian. These books which Ghost Doctor had stored were all any information about this. There were records of various medicinal herbs, geographical locations. Ghost Doctor and there were records and legends regarding the origins of the medicinal herbs, and casually scattered them on the table. As she continued to tidy up these pills, there were quite a number of rare medicinal which I asked you to read yesterday. Yi-Ching Luo recalled that Ghost Doctor had thrown several books to her, and later on she was being pursued, which she had seen and found out that Long Yunzhan was a human dragon. The 100-pill refining book was something which Old Man Song had hidden for a very long time. She carefully picked up those pills, even if it wasn't a few tidied-up porcelain bottle. It would at least be a few hundred years old. Yesterday in the secret room, if I've already finished reading those two books, it would definitely cause a bloodbath. Don't think about improving. There were quite a number of formulas in these books which belonged to Ghost Doctor. As he flicked his sleeves and walked towards the secret room, and precious sort out the medicinal herbs in the medicine cabinet, Yi-Ching Luo tidied up as she flipped through these books, saying if there was something which she was interested in, she would spend more time and effort to memorize it all. The secret room's entrance was tightly shut one breath at a time. Yi-Ching Luo had already tidied up to the last shelf. Just as he was about to move, was even more willful than Gui. He heard a few ladies ridiculing laughter coming from outside and took a look at the right side of the pill refining room. At those two huge medicinal cabinets to clean up. Why don't I see him? There were at least 400 to 500 doors. Could it be that he secretly ran away? Instantly, if the wind became you'll be going chaotic against the instructor's orders. As expected, no matter where he went, he couldn't split up the fate of tidying up. If we can't find him, we'll inform instructor he and instructor packed all the pills which Ghost Doctor had thrown on the sound of several and placed them neatly on the medicine back and forth. The soundproofing of the medicine cabinet had been designed to allow the Ghost Doctor to refine medicine in peace. The drawer was full of all kinds of medicinal herbs. Moreover, the Ghost Doctor had been afraid of trouble, and because of that, there were at least 7 or 8 different kinds of medicinal herbs. By right, under the circumstances, even if he was afraid of finding room being, he should at least put some thought into this matter related to hear the discussions outside, right? It was these medicinal herbs countered each other and were placed together, didn't know what was going on. Wouldn't it be a waste of an entire tray of medicinal herbs? Ever since she came out from the profound Chi treasure land this morning, that whenever the Ghost Doctor needed a medicinal seemed to have increased, she would directly take it from the medicine cabinet, separated by the thick walls. The footsteps she would casually and discussions of the students outside could be heard clearly in his ears. With the Ghost Doctor's personality, it seemed like she really would do that. These people were here to see her she had tidied up yesterday were in a mess again after she came out of the secret room. Was a little speechless. She could predict that in less than 3 days, the medicinal herbs in the drawer would be the same as today after she had painstakingly sorted them out. In the afternoon, Shangguan Liuli had chided even if she knew this would happen, she had to be chided by others. She still had to brace herself to organize the medicinal herbs. This would also help her to further understand the medicinal effects and shapes of the medicinal herbs. Luo put down the book in her hands and silently walked to the side of the door as she started to organize the medicinal herbs one by one. She saw a few female students walking around outside the library pavilion. Luckily, she had read through 2 books pushing on the foundation of medicinal after another as they searched for Yi-Ching Luo and learnt the ability to differentiate medicinal herbs from 100-pill refining, afraid that the administrator would be called over. Chapter all of them called out Yi-Ching Luo's name softly. Yi-Ching Luo's hands and feet were nimble and her brain was working at full speed. Why did she have a feeling of soul calling? With a single glance, it looked like able to identify the messy pile of medicinal herbs in this matter rest. She sorted these medicinal herbs one by one and then opened another drawer. Too much time on their hands. Yi-Ching Luo's thoughts didn't want to improve themselves, on tidying up the medicine cabinet. But her time was very precious. He didn't notice that suppressing the raging primitive energy in her heart. Yi-Ching Luo shut her eyes as she silently recited the incantation and her figure watched her tidy up the medicine cabinet. In a blink of an eye, his hands disappeared from the pill refining room. His reaction was not bad. The entrance of his memory was also very passage split open and Ghost Doctor walked identify any medicinal herbs that he had seen before he could open his mouth the same medicinal herbs together for creating trouble again. The Ghost Doctor's expressionless face softened a little, as though it had blended into the air, disappearing without a trace as before. Little by little, a trace of astonishment appeared on his wrinkled face. This little girl was a promising young lady. He congealed his senses. The Ghost Doctor was a medicine refiner who was crazy about refining pills. In the reading room not too far away, and was extremely meticulous about everything related to refining and the astonishment in his eyes grew by several degrees. The reason why he accepted Yi-Ching Luo was because when Yi-Ching Luo silently shifted her medicinal herbs on the table, he could tell that she had some innate talent in alchemy, which was why he was moved. This freshman, how was she able to display trouble and was too lazy to tidy up the refining room? In the reading room, Yi-Ching Luo pretended to clean up as she patted the books already in a mess to the point where one could not bear to look straight at it. Suddenly, coincidentally, the reading room's door was opened by someone. Thus, he had the idea of finding a student who was pleasing to his eyes to help him tidy up the medicine refining classes student, Yan
From the looks of
Xiaoyi's
it,
half-sister,
although this
with
little
extremely
girl was a
high
little
innate
troublesome,
talent,
she
Yan
wasn't
Zhenfei.
annoying.
After tidying for about 2 hours, Yi Qing Luo had just tidied up the first medicine cabinet. Yan Zhenfei saw Yi Qing Luo. She rubbed her sore arms. She immediately stuck her head out and shouted. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind her. Were heard. All right, 3 female students blocked the reading room's door. Don't be a hindrance here. Yi Qing Luo put down the book behind her as he strode towards the table. I know you all worship me and are so agitated to see me. Yi Qing Luo nodded. Are you all here to ask for my autograph? She hadn't had a single drop of water for the entire morning and had spent such a long time sorting out the arm of the female student behind her. She was so hungry that her chest was sticking to her back. Look at her. She's been punished for 2 days in a row. Back here to continue tidying up. Her reputation is ruined. Just as Yi Qing Luo walked out of the pill refining room, Lu Shuelan's beautiful eyes squinted from behind. Her expression was filled with pride as she examined Yi Qing Luo. The more he thought about it, was undeniable that Yi Qing Luo's looks were too stunning, who had seemed so terrifying and strange yesterday, extremely lazy wasn't attitude, so fierce after all, as if she didn't care about anything. He hated trouble, it added a bit of charm to about her health. Although his tone was a little fierce, moreover, the meaning behind his words was that he was so unruly and unrestrained. Yet leaving the medicine and refinement chamber, Zhang Xian arrived at the first floor of the compendium, unable to shift their gaze, where he met a group of people walking into the compendium pavilion. Lu Shuelan hated Yi Qing Luo's when the two of them, but at the same time, they both stopped. Yi Qing Luo's existence was beneficial to her. Their leader was Shangguan Liuli. No one was willing to be born under someone else. They should be the students from intermediate profound in terms of appearance, talent, and profound rank. She was no worse than Shangguan Liuli saw Yi Qing Luo. Just because Lu Shuai originally was born a year earlier than instantly turned gloomy. She had to become Lu Shuai's foil. The lady beside her who was holding her arm also had a face of disgust. She and Lu Shuai had a deep sisterly relationship, running errands for Lu Shuai everywhere. How many books can you read? Had enough of these things. How many words can you read? Hoping and waiting. The moment finally he said Yi Qing Luo's the other women around him covered their mouths. She didn't like Yi Qing Luo. But as the saying goes, but this the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Our freshman training was ambushed by an assassin yesterday, and he completely make Lu Shuai step down. Shangguan then the position of vice president she raised her voice. During today's training, the 2 instructors felt that she had lost face. Chapter 4, so they punished her to the second floor to organize the books, and the other female students' expressions changed. The student had heard the news about the assassin. What happened to finding trouble? At this moment, how did it become help which they shot towards Yi Qing Luo were filled with ridicule and gloating over her misfortune. Both of them had their doubts, but they didn't dare to know that ever since Yi Qing Luo entered the academy, Yi Qing Luo's she was an influential. She laughed lightly. Help me. The disciple whom the overlord had personally acknowledged, so kind, the mysterious and unfathomable natural. The student whom everyone was fighting council's vice and had the guts to go against the faculty have to be considerate of students, and so on. This is the faculty council's aim. Lu Shuelan apparently didn't hear the ridicule in Yi Qing Luo's words. However, and thought that the news of Yi Qing Luo as a smile from being frightened by the killers made the students not know whether to laugh silently in her heart. Suddenly they felt that it was reasonable for the academy to arrange Yi Qing Luo high to the devil class. Not even a third of her sisters. It was noon and there were quite a number of students who had just finished their lunch and came to the library pavilion to read. Other than Si Yen Mu's there was quite a lot of people. Her brain spun extremely quickly. A few female students stood at the entrance and the really became the vice president of the faculty attracted the attention of the other students. She would probably be scolded by Si Yen Mu to the point of being drenched by couldn't help but cast a puzzled gaze over. Just one look at Lu Shuelan and Yi Qing Luo was so hungry that she was lying flat on the ground. Acting vice president. The minute she recalled that ghost doctor asked her to hurry back slightly as she totally couldn't be bothered with Shangguan Liuli. She's not praising. Facing these female students' ridicule, she didn't show any expression at all. Coldly as her expression towards those whom she didn't care about. Why would she care what others thought of her? Yan Zhenfei lowered her eyelids as she didn't dare to walk towards the library pavilion's main entrance. She pulled the female student next to her into the reading room to help Yi Qing Luo tidy up. At this everything moment, in the reading room had been tidied up by Xiao Ji to put on airs in front of her, so they didn't need their help at all. She even dared to ignore her. Moreover, Lu Shuelan didn't have any good intentions words and had been bearing the grudge in her heart, waiting for a suitable opportunity to take revenge on Yi Qing Luo. I don't need any help. But every single time if she saw Yi Qing Luo, please leave and she would be inexplicably annoyed and had the thought of dismembering to make her tone gentle and polite pieces. But the 3 of them apparently didn't think so. Yi Qing Luo, I'm talking to you. Yan Zhenfei was originally suppressing a ball of fire in her heart because she stretched out her arm and blocked without thinking. She pointed at Yi Qing Luo. She had suffered a loss in Yi Qing Luo's hands and towards Yi Qing Luo's acting vice president asked us to help you because he had some restraining fear. What right do you have to reject him? But yesterday, Yi Qing Luo fainted from being frightened by the killers. Successfully made Shangguan Liuli dispel her fear towards Yi Qing Luo. Another female student was unable to make a comeback for the rest of her life. They were all high profound class students and had always been used to being slightly as a sliver of impatience appeared in between her brows. The turn of a devil class student to point fingers. She had just settled down for a few days and now she wanted to jump out. A handprint appeared on Shang Liuli's face turned black as her eyes stared wide open and covered her face, not concealing her disgust towards Yi Qing Luo at all. Merely a coward. She stared at Yi Qing Luo, training to realize that Yi Qing Luo I feel that you're standing at the same spot, as though she had not looked at the few people beside her. Among the female students, but Yi Qing Luo always raised her fair little hand and gently stroked it, totally indicating that this of the Shangguan family, and her overall ability was very strong. It hurts my hand. Naturally, they were willing to treat looked like she was hidden as their team big sister. My poor little hand. Sighed. He listened to Shangguan Liuli's arrangements for everything. Yan Zhenfei's eyes were red. On seeing Shangguan Liuli's eye signal, slap had almost caused female students surrounded Yi Qing Luo. It was so painful that when she moved her facial muscles that as they spoke, she felt they would actually start fighting. Yi Qing Luo one by totally didn't bother they put down their books or stopped in their tracks as she slowly turned her head and looked at the female student on the side. Suddenly, the female student subconsciously covered her face. Her face filled with a ferocious look on his face. How on the librarian pointed at Shangguan Liuli and scolded. This is the library. Totally didn't see the most sacred place in the academy. If you don't wish to read, scram out of the library. Lan's expression wasn't too good as her forced smile froze on her face. The administrator frowned and looked at Yi Qing Luo's slap landed on Yan Zhenfei's face. Get out of here too. The students were frightened by the sudden roar. Their bodies trembled as they quickly turned around and stood in a row, bowing their heads to the administrator. I don't have a good temper. The people in the Heavenly Academy if you don't have the ability. Otherwise, I'll beat up whoever comes. From the headmaster of the academy and the directors of the various departments to the street cleaners, they could all be masters of the world. 2 days ago, she had heard this administrator mention that Yi Qing Luo was the one who trained the intruders. He had quite a reputation in the academy. She had just become the acting vice president, and such a huge and the other had already happened. Immediately lowered their heads and apologized. If the news spread to the elder quarters, whereas Yi Qing Luo would not be the only one to suffer, had no intention to apologize at all. Yesterday there was the matter of an outside assassin trying to assassinate Yi Qing Luo, causing the academy students to be standing closest as they started to question the academy's safety. She was still bowing to the administrator. There were even some students from the high profound class who didn't want to take the opportunity and reveal the trespassers. How could there be such a good thing? They were all guessing if the intruders that day were these assassins. How dare you! In this time of panic, the students placed their hopes on the faculty raised her volume as she pointed towards Yi Qing Luo, who had already walked out of the main door. You simply have no respect for your elders. Then those intruders absolutely had nothing to do with Yi Qing Luo. The one who asked me to leave, especially when they heard Shangguan Fang mention that when they tested it would become me having no respect for my elders. Yi Qing Luo obviously didn't seem to have suffered any internal injury, and even gave Yi Qing made one unable to rebuke her. Today she heard that Yi Qing Luo had been punished by the instructor's finger, which was and had agreed with intermediate profound class. She was so infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's words that she was unable to join in the interclass competition. However, 8 months later, before Shangguan Liuli he became even more suspicious. She heard the administrator's under Yan Zhenfei's invitation. Lu Shuelon decided to come to the library to take a look. His words had just ended when the administrator's robust and at the same time bent over to carry Shangguan Liuli and to get rid of Lu Shuai. Shangguan Liuli was so scared that her face turned pale had not expected and retreated backwards. Luo totally didn't fall for what a joke. No matter what the administrator was a man, you've offended so middle-aged man. I'd like to see what other backing you have and how long you can stay in the Heavenly Academy ruined for the rest of her life. Lu Shuelan's beautiful eyes were gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing as she stumbled out of the library pavilion. Since they couldn't be allies, the other female students were afraid that the administrator would vent his anger on them as all of them kept their mouths like fire and timidly ran out of the library. So she wasn't worried that Yi Qing Luo would join hands with Liu's heart was crying out in frustration. Lu Shuelon snorted coldly. It was currently the afternoon break just when she was about many students entering. She heard the administrator's loud voice coming from the second floor. Her current students of the high profound to many students' eyes. Just read your books. Don't keep yelling. She wondered how the rumors would turn out. If you don't want to read, then scram. The surrounding gazes were like needles as they fiercely pierced onto Shangguan Liuli. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, are you all right? That incomparably fierce face revealed anger surrounded Shangguan Liuli. What are you doing in the library all day long? And a pair of venomous and sinister the administrator appear. A cunning look flashed across Yan Zhenfei's eyes. He subconsciously retracted his hand. The hostility between her brows immediately disappeared. This withdrawal of hand, and she put on a completely agitated Shangguan Liuli. Who do you think you are? She covered her face and sobbed softly. How dare you, administrator? We just came here to look for some cultivation books as she flung away the female student who was holding onto her without any explanation. Slap on her face. Vice President Dai and classmate Fong were just standing up for me, but she fell so their voices were a little louder. Shangguan Liuli's pretty face was cold and twisted. Seeing the handprint on her face, she felt that the administrator's face darkened, who usually fawned over her. He directly stretched out his hand towards her and did not know how to help her at a critical moment. A student like you, my library pavilion doesn't welcome you. That's making trouble all day long. Get out of here. Shangguan Liuli thought that these female students were later and asked him not to throw people into the library when he punishes you. He retracted his hand, but just as his hand was about to grab Yiqing Luo's collar, a white shadow flashed past. Yiqing Luo cast a sidelong glance. The administrator hadn't managed to react in time. In her eyes, instantly Shangguan Liuli was a lunatic. He clutched his arm and didn't make any sound, but his face was filled with agony. Living in his own world forever. It was so painful that his face turned pale. As he broke out in cold sweat, couldn't be bothered to waste her saliva and turned around to leave, enduring the pain as he looked behind her, which had Shangguan Liuli seemed as though she had gone mad. A white porcelain bottle fell onto the floor as it shook slightly. Her expression was malevolent as her eyes, which made one feel chilly, stared fiercely at this porcelain bottle. Why did it look a little like? Are you amazing? Do you dare to fight me in this year's interclass competition? As soon as these words came out, the surrounding students exclaimed in surprise, which had always been tightly shut, was now half open. This was the dazzling luminous pearl which was held once a year in the Heavenly Academy. Ghost Doctor was filled with a vicious aura as he stood at the entrance to change classes and climbed to a higher class, staring eerily in the direction of Yiqing Luo and the others. There were only 3 classes which took part in the interclass competition, namely Doctor, Intermediate and High. The 3 female students beside him had been in the academy and there was no room for them to rise, so they had naturally heard of the rumors about the Ghost Doctor. They had never participated in this kind of competition. They also knew that the medicine refining room was a forbidden area on the second floor of the library. This kind of interclass competition was considered as a team competition. No one was allowed to step into the forbidden area. Li's words were obviously representing the intermediate. No one had ever seen the Ghost Doctor issue a challenge to Devil Class. When he heard the administrator shout, this was simply bullying, his eyes immediately widened. Too cunning. How lucky were they today Shangguan to actually meet the elusive Ghost Doctor. With Yiqing Luo alone, she would absolutely not be able to win. She hurriedly dragged the 2 female students behind her and lowered her head towards the Ghost Doctor. Then the result would be different. Lord Ghost Doctor. Devil Class was a bunch of trash and couldn't even be shown in public. Her gaze was like a sharp knife as she stared was supporting the administrator. But after all, the administrator felt fight against 4 all over his body as he broke out in a cold sweat. Could she go against the entire intermediate profound class too alone? Lord Ghost Doctor, I'm really sorry. It could be said that Shangguan Luli had issued this challenge to disturb your refinement in front of so many students. I'll chase them out right now. Although it was a little sinister, the administrator thought that the Ghost Doctor's rage was entirely because these students had interrupted his concoction in this academy. Enduring the sharp pain from being frightened by the killer another student to take part in the interclass competition, etc. But when his hand stretched out in the academy would be Luo once again. Ghost Doctor's porcelain bottle struck his wrist once again. There was no need to wait for the competition. It was precisely in the same position. This result was already very obvious. It was so painful that the manager cried out on the spot. Would lose without a doubt. He clutched his wrist and looked at the Ghost Doctor with a face full of fear would have another reason to humiliate Yiqing Luo. When Lu Shuelon and the others saw this, they did not dare to make a sound. Li's provocation. They lowered their heads, hoping that their presence would be reduced and narrow eyes slightly. As she estimated the overall ability of Devil's voice was ice cold. His gaze cold. This interclass competition would only be held in 8 months' time. Body suddenly trembled. 8 months' time. The sharp pain in his arm caused his face to contort in pain. To let Devil Class wash away the name of trash that they had been crowned. No matter how scared he was, if they were able to get first place in one fell swoop and become a class that surpassed the high profound Ghost Doctor. Then Devil Class's hard-working figure was even faster than him and walked in front of him. She understood that Devil Class's students had been working hard to improve themselves, as though there wasn't a single bit of fear or terror, to those people that they were absolutely powerful pressure that Ghost Doctor had unleashed. And the interclass competition was the only chance for Devil Class's students to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat only. Yiqing Luo wasn't clear. To what extent did the Ghost Doctor intend to train these students if you offend the Ghost Doctor, before they could completely reveal their 10 times? It won't be enough to compensate. Facing Shangguan Lu, the manager's face instantly turned pale. Luo was still hesitant. After all, he had been a librarian in the academy for decades and had always been in charge of the library. She couldn't represent Devil Class to accept this challenge just because of her own temper and personality. She hated trouble and didn't think about the academy. Do you have to be so cheap? There was once a student who kept pestering him to learn the skills of refining medicine, but was beaten out by the Ghost Doctor with one hand on her waist and the other pointing at Shangguan Liuli. That student was seriously injured and had to leave the academy. Do you represent the entire intermediate profound class? It was said that he had completely become a cripple. However, do you think that the students of class 2 are as despicable, shameless, that student's family did not dare to cause trouble for the academy? Spat out a barrage of reprimands like a cannonball. The administrator
Lu
saw
Xiaoyu
Yi
had just ended her
walking
training
towards
and hadn't even had the time to wash up and
change into a clean set
He
of
endured
clothes
the pain
when she
in his
heard the
wrist
students
as he
talking
dashed
about
forward,
Yi
trying to
and
pull
Yi
Lu
having a
back.
conflict in the library
Although he
pavilion.
didn't have any good impression
She
of
didn't
Yi
even
Luo,
bother to change
but she
her
was
clothes
after all
and
a
directly
student of the
rushed
academy
over. And as a senior figure
Coincidentally,
in the academy,
she
he
heard
wasn't willing to
Shangwan
see
Liuli
any challenge
challenging
Yi
Yi
Luo. But the
Shangwan
scene in front of
Liuli
him
was
caused
scolded
the
so
administrator
harshly
to
that her
suddenly
originally
stop in his
smug
tracks.
face was now flushed red.
He staggered and almost
That
fell to the
sense of
ground.
shame once again welled up
He
in his
saw Yi
heart.
Luo walking in
If
front of
student
Ghost
Yi has
Doctor
no
and nodding her
objections,
head slightly
I,
at
the
him.
class monitor
Senior
of
Ghost
Intermediate
Doctor.
Profound Class 2, represent Intermediate Profound Class 2 to issue a challenge to Devil Class during the
Chapter
inter-class
410.
competition. The administrator
From the crowd,
and the three
a
female
tall and
students
slender
behind
young
him
man
were all
with regular
stunned.
features walked out.
Especially the administrator.
His eyes and
his
brows
mouth was
exuded
agape
a
as
heroic
his face
spirit.
was filled with disbelief. Had he developed
Chapter
an
400.
auditory hallucination,
Xia
developing
class
hallucinations? Lu
Sir
Xiaoyu
Ghost
stared at
Doctor
that young
actually-
man as her bright eyes widened.
actually didn't slap
Why are you
that student
following
out?
Shangwan Li's blind
He
jeering?
actually
Shangwan
such an
Li's
amiable
eyes
tone
lit
to
up
speak to
on
that
seeing
student.
that she had a backer.
If
She
Yi
immediately
Luo
smiled
knew
and looked at the man beside her. She would
Xia
probably
class
ridicule
monitor.
endlessly.
This
Damn it.
call was called as tender
This
as
is called
water.
amiable.
Xia
This
Yan's
fiendish
smile
look,
didn't diminish
as
as
though
he put
I
on a
owe him
serious
1,800,000
face. This is not blind
coins.
jeering.
This is also called
For so
amiable.
many years, the
However,
inter-class
in the
competition has
administrator's
always been
eyes,
between the low,
he was used to seeing
intermediate
how
and high
Ghost Doctor
classes.
ruthlessly slapped one after
Although
another.
Devil Class's students are
Ghost
slightly
Doctor
lacking
didn't
in
take
innate
any
talent,
action and only
but they
said
are
a few
after all
words,
Heavenly
which was
Academy
already
students.
considered as the most amiable.
This kind of big event,
Who asked
Devil
my
Class
disciple
should
to scram
indeed
out.
take part in it.
Ghost Doctor's
If you
vision
take part,
shifted away
who
from
knows,
Yi Luo.
there might be
locking
one or
onto
two
the
students
administrator
who will be able to stand out
when
and
the
enter the
administrator
low
heard
profound
the
class.
two words, disciple,
That
he
would
was
be a
instantly
new start
struck
in your
by
life.
lightning from a
If you
clear
don't
sky.
take part,
then you won't even
his
have
ears
the
were
chance.
filled with the
Wouldn't you
sound
have
of
wasted
thunder
a year's
exploding?
time?
Not
Student
only
Shangwan
Lu
has indeed
Shualong,
raised an
Yan
interesting
Zhengfei,
suggestion,
and the others
if
also had a
Student Yi
look as
doesn't
though
mind,
they had seen a
can we have a
ghost.
battle?
Saying
Luo
that,
was
the
Ghost
smile
Doctor's
on his
disciple,
lips added some gentleness.
How could that be possible?
Looking at Yi
Lu
Luo's
Shualong
eyes,
was just
it was
hooting,
also
saying
filled
that
with a
Yi
polite
Luo
smile.
no longer had any backing,
Yi
and now a
Luo
Ghost
frowned.
Doctor appeared. This young
She
man,
felt as though her
compared to
face was
Shangwan
being
Liuli,
slapped.
was even harder to
Her
deal
hands,
with.
which were hanging by the side
Every
of her
word
body,
and sentence
clenched
was
tightly
actually
into
reasonable.
fists.
Yi Luo couldn't
Why was
find
Yi
any fault to
Luo
refute.
so lucky?
Originally,
What
Shangwan
mysterious
Li's
and noble
challenge, which
people
came up
all
with no
became her
rhyme or
backing.
reason, portrayed the
First
intermediate
it was the
profound
overlord,
class 2
then
as
it was
a class
Guiyu,
that bullied the
and now
weak,
a ghost
sinister,
doctor.
and cunning. Lu Shualong
But
was
Xia
so
Yan's
hateful
words
that her lungs
pushed
were
the
about to
intermediate
explode.
profound class 2 to a
But
higher
on her
platform.
face, she didn't dare to
This
reveal any
was
of
the
it.
charm of words.
The administrator's
It was
well-built body
obviously
kept
the same
trembling
meaning,
as his voice
but when
trembled.
different people
Ghost,
said it, the
Sir
resulting
Ghost
effect
Doctor,
was totally
I
different.
I didn't
At
know
this
that
moment,
student Yi is
those
your
students
disciple.
who were
How
originally
would I
ridiculing
dare? How would I
Shangwan
dare
Liuli
to
for
ask
bullying
her to
the weak
scram?
and fearing the strong?
Ghost Doctor
representing
gave
the
a cold
intermediate
laugh.
profound class 2 to play
The
double class
administrator
for no
trembled
reason.
even more
All
violently,
nodded their heads,
feeling
he
that what
suddenly
Xia
slapped
Yan
his
said
own
was
face.
very reasonable. Left and right
these
slaps,
words
the
also
strength
blocked
was
Yi
huge.
Luo's path of retreat.
2 slaps and his entire
If she
face
agreed,
swelled up.
intermediate profound class
Sir
2
Ghost
would
Doctor,
gain a good reputation.
the one who spoke rudely
even if
was
they
me.
defeated
The
double
one who
class
had eyes
badly,
but failed
that
to
would also
recognize
be a
Mount
good
Tai
reputation.
is also me. It has
If she
nothing to
didn't
do with
agree,
these students.
there might be people who scolded
The
Yi
administrator
Luo
raised
for
his
not
head,
knowing what's
and
good
after
for her.
meeting the Ghost Doctor's eyes,
Just agree.
he immediately lowered his
You
head
make
again.
it sound like
I
the
beg
students
Lord
of
Ghost
Devil
Doctor,
class are
please,
afraid.
release this
In the
group of
crowd,
students.
a low voice rang
When
out.
Lu Shualong heard this,
That voice,
her face
was very
immediately
familiar.
turned pale.
Yi
She dragged
Luo
the
raised
two
her head
female
and saw
students and
Xiao
knelt on the
Jin
ground,
sandwiched in the crowd,
Yes,
acting as one of
yes,
the spectators.
Yes. His appearance
This matter
was
has nothing
unremarkable,
to do with
and he
us.
deliberately restrained his aura.
It was the administrator who told
He did not
student Yi to
stand
get
out
out
in the
crowd.
We don't know
The
anything.
minute Xiao
These
Jin
words
opened
really
his
made
mouth,
one's heart
the surrounding
turn cold.
students all started to cheer, making Yi Luo agree to it.
The administrator only glanced
Everyone
at
had
them
the intention
and
to
also
watch
knelt
the
down.
show.
It's my fault. I beg Lord
After
Ghost
all,
Doctor to let
the
the
students
students of the
go.
Devil class had already
Yi
disappeared
Luo
for a few
slowly
years.
narrowed her eyes as she
The
swept
only two
past
known
Lu
students were Yi
Shualong and the others
Luo
who were
and
kneeling
Mo
on the
Yuen.
ground, as she sneered.
Everyone was also very
This
curious.
smile seemed exceptionally
After
clear
so
and
many
ethereal
years,
in the empty
just
library,
how much trash had
adding
been
some
stored in that
mysteriousness
place that
to it.
housed all the trash in the
The
academy.
Ghost Doctor director turned her head and
Since
glanced
Xiao
at her,
Jin had
her
spoken
expression
up at this
cold.
moment.
He must have
Then,
represented the
she
opinion
said
of the
lightly,
devil class.
"Since you spoke rudely,
You have
immediately,
eyes but
Yi
fail to
Qing
recognize
Luo had
Mount
no more
Tai.
worries.
Why do you
Her
still need
lips
this
curled
mouth
into a
and this
cold
pair of
smile.
eyes? Her charming eyes
Hearing
flashed
these
a long
words,
and narrow
the manager's
cold arc,
face instantly
slightly
turned
raised.
pale.
Just like what class
Lu
monitor
Shualan,
Xie
who was
said,
kneeling
this
on the
is an
ground,
opportunity for
turned
the devil
soft,
class.
as she was
We
so
cannot
frightened
waste
that
a
she
year's
directly
time.
knelt down on the ground.
Xia Yan laughed.
The administrator
Student Yi
glanced
is really
sideways
smart.
at the three frightened students
But
behind
I have
him,
a request.
as he clenched his teeth.
Yi
Yes,
Qing Luo
spoke
restrained
rudely.
a sharp glint
You have
in her
eyes, but failed to
as she
recognize
slowly
Mount
walked
Tai.
towards Xia Yan.
This
If
class
mouth,
monitor
this pair
Xia
of
has the
eyes,
ability to
indeed
convince the
cannot
elders'
be kept.
quarters
Then I will represent
Saying
Devil
that,
class to
he
accept
raised
his
his
hand
hand
and congealed a burst of profound chi. As he stabbed towards his own brows rose. It was related to the Elder's quarters. Chapter 401. Chapter 411. What the dong? You're making it seem as though class monitor gave a muffled begging Devil class to join in. Lu Shuelon and the others slowly opened their eyes and saw a bewitching red glow flashing have to talk about conditions. That was Yiqing Luo's. If you want to join, then join. Like a ball of
Forget it if you
fire,
don't.
forming an arc in
On
midair
what basis
as it
are you
returned
talking
to
about
Yiqing Luo's
conditions?
hand. The surrounding students started to be struck by that feather
Luo
fan
with righteous
earlier.
indignation.
His sturdy body was on the verge of collapsing onto the ground. Really treated themselves as treasure? And agreed to their conditions? Disciple is not satisfied with the way you handled this. Wishful thinking. Ghost Doctor squinted his eyes as he stared coldly at Yiqing with interest. Yiqing Luo waved her feather fan and pressed against her lower lip as she casually brushed past the administrator and gave a faint laugh. Since the administrator has already admitted his mistake, as though he didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. Ghost Doctor gave a cold Devil class's students to have the freedom to leave or laid on the ground as his clothes were soaked in the academy's restricted areas. He trembled as he climbed up and was just about to go anywhere in the heavenly when he heard Ghost Doctor's cold voice. This request, still not if the elders agreed to it. The administrator was stunned as his eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. Even if Devil class's students performed outstandingly, Ghost Doctor had no right to transfer them to other classes. He immediately kowtowed on the ground. Moreover, thank you, Sir Ghost Doctor. Other than those restricted areas, they would be able to move freely. He got up and dragged the to announce Devil classes as he speedily left the second story of the library. Naturally had to think of a way out, not daring to stay any longer. Xia Yan muttered to himself. Saw the administrator leaving and cut her fist towards Ghost Doctor. Thank you, Senior Ghost Doctor, for stepping forward. He could roughly guess the reason why Yiqing Luo raised this request. Ghost Doctor flicked his sleeves as he turned around and walked into the pill refining room. Their innate talents were extremely bad, and they had no actual combat experience at all. She was very curious. They had been hiding in the Ghost Doctor, who had always hated trouble, hiding for several involved years, in such a dispute, just because they were afraid of being bullied by other students, and he would lose his mouth and eyes. If they were to take part in the interclass competition, these waves would definitely appear in front of everyone's eyes. It seemed like in Ghost Doctor's heart. If they didn't have reached the level where he would stand up, would definitely be isolated and bullied by the other classes' refining room. He stared eerily. He couldn't tell that this new student's half-squinted eyes revealed a sense of scrutiny. Xia Yan recalled his brother's hair stood on end that he must definitely let had a taste of the administrator's feeling take part in the interclass competition 8 months later. Why did you help him? He restrained the radiance in his eyes as he smiled faintly. Asked coldly. This request, I can raise it up to the elders. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes in puzzlement as she realized that he was referring to the administrator. As for the other classes' requests, I just feel that the academy's elders who are thinking for the students are worthy of respect. Xia Yan spread out his hands, with a helpless look. Luo replied calmly, waiting for your answer. Seeing that the administrator was even willing to destroy his own if he had any ideas or not, and the others could leave unscathed. After throwing this action down, made Yiqing Luo squeezed out of the crowd and headed towards the direction of the canteen. He had also disregarded Ghost Doctor's prestige and wanted to go up to her as he squinted his eyes. This action aroused Luo's departing figure. A treacherous luster faintly appeared. Although the administrator was a little fierce and his words were a little harsh, beautiful eyes, his heart for the carefully grabbing Xia Yan's arm. Class monitor, in this sturdy academy, thank you for helping there was still someone with such a pure heart. If it wasn't for you, I would have been humiliated by her again. Hearing Yiqing Luo's reply, before he could even grasp it, a cold harumph, Xia Yan had already retracted his hand. Kind. Student Yiqing Luo, as a student of the intermediate profound class, perhaps to be humiliated by a student of the devil much more soft-hearted. Do you think you have the qualifications to look down on the devil class? This word had nothing to do with her in the past. Xia Yan still had a warm smile on his strange world, but the words that came out of his mouth were extremely ear-piercing. She was indeed living more and more like a human. Liuli was instantly stunned. However, and a trace of astonishment flashed past her face. At least he had flesh and blood, appeared in front of everyone to help her out of trouble. Could it not be unlike before, he was like a cold-killing machine, wasn't it, living like he was interested in her? Her lips curled as she blinked as she stared at Xia Yan's handsome face, the same as well, wondering if she had heard wrongly. Even if I don't open my mouth to stop him, I'm afraid deep and impolite words continued to enter her ears. Expression if you have the time to be jealous, he didn't open his mouth to rebuke. Why not raise your own ability? A vase that only looks good will be eliminated sooner or later. Chapter 412. The Ghost Doctor stared at the beautiful young lady in front of him. What was Xia Yan's identity? Her smile was very bright, didn't know without any impurities, clean and pure. But she was very clear that Xia Yan had agreed to enchanting eyes were which meant that he had the confidence to make the elders' quarters and the other class monitors when Yiqing Luo was facing the administrator and the other competition 8 months later. She was calm and was definitely going to take part in it. Her brows loosened slightly. She went to the cafeteria to buy some food. This young lady was getting more and more interesting. When the students saw her, they started pointing his sharp eyes. I thought I had already not to see them as she finished her
point.
food on her own.
Yi-Qing Luo was
At
shocked,
least his stomach
so
was
Ghost Doctor
saved.
also knew cold humor.
She kept the cutlery and was about
She
to get
choked
up
on her
when she saw
saliva
Shang
and coughed
Wanfang
violently.
walking over.
She opened
That
her
rather
eyes
handsome
wide
face
and stared
frowned
fixedly
tightly
at the Ghost
Student
Doctor.
Do you really intend
The
to lead
Ghost
Devil
Doctor's
class to take
expression
part in the
hadn't
inter-class
changed from start to
competition
finish.
8 months later?
Only her eyes had
Yi-Qing
narrowed
Luo's
slightly,
brows rose,
revealing a
this
cold
news
glint.
spread really quickly.
Yi-Qing Luo shuddered.
In just a
Senior
mere
Ghost
time,
Doctor's
it had
meaning
already
is,
spread to the entire courtyard.
You're really prepared to take me in
Are
as
you
your
crazy?
disciple?
What
Do I
kind
look
of
like
place
someone
is
who
Devil
jokes?
class? The
If you
Ghost
lead
Doctor
Devil class to
snorted
take
coldly.
part, wouldn't it be pushing
Yi-Qing
Devil
Luo
class to
shook her
eternal
head
damnation?
immediately.
It
Shang
didn't look like
Wanfang
it.
Yi's face was gloomy
Absolutely
as he put on a
not at
concerned
all.
look towards Yi-Qing Luo.
That meant
the Ghost
the
Doctor
inter-class
really wanted to take
competition
her
is
as
an
his
extremely
disciple.
cruel competition.
However, after these
Although
2
it won't
days of
harm the other
interaction,
party's life,
she felt that the
but there's
Ghost
a
Doctor's
possibility of
impression of her
crippling
wasn't
them.
that good.
Xia
She
Yan,
was
that
just a
fox, is
dispensable
obviously
existence.
scheming against you.
When she came back
When he
from
said the
lunch,
last sentence,
she also had
he
a
lowered
fierce
his voice
look on
to
her
a
face.
volume that only the 2 of them
Why
could
did he
hear.
suddenly seem like a different
Apparently,
person? He was afraid that the topic
Strange.
of him talking about
It
Xia
was too
Yan would be
strange.
spread out by others. There was definitely
However,
a trap. While Shang Wanfang
Yi-Qing
was
Luo
worried
was vigilant.
like an ant
Her
on a
eyes
hot
were like
pan,
torches.
the young lady
Senior
in front of
Dui
him
Yi
raised
just
her
say what
slender
you want to
brows
say.
as a ridiculing arc
We're
flashed
honest
past her
people
slender
and don't do
eyes.
underhanded
So?
things.
The Ghost Doctor's eyebrows
Shang
twitched.
Wanfang
was instantly at
As
a loss
expected,
for words. Taking in disciples was
He had
simply
said
too
so
troublesome,
much.
and this was the reaction
Especially
she
when
gave
he was
him.
taking in such a weird
Could it
little
be
girl.
that she really wanted Devil
He
class
frowned
to
and
take
did not
part
want
in
to
the
get
inter-class
himself into trouble
competition?
again.
It wasn't
He
that he
directly
was
asked
afraid
the
of
question
Devil
he wanted
class
to
or
ask.
afraid of Yi-Qing
Where did you learn the
Luo?
secret technique you used
But he
before?
wanted to make use of this opportunity to
technique?
show concern for Yi-Qing Luo.
Yi-Qing Luo's expression
After
congealed.
all, Yi-Qing Luo's
Could it
own
be
ability was
that when he
something
used
he understood
teleportation
better than
just now,
Shang
the
Ghost Doctor had seen him?
If he was able to woo this
he
young
wanted to
lady
learn
who had
about
been
this
raised
secret
in her
technique
boudoir.
from her. Based on Yi-Qing Luo's
Was that why he
relationship
appeared
with
to
so
help
many
her when
high
the
and mighty
administrator
people,
chased her away?
wouldn't they all become his chess pieces?
That secret technique,
if
but
I'm
he had
not
not
mistaken,
expected that
should be the
Yi-Qing
king
Luo
of
totally
thieves'
didn't fall
teleportation
for his
secret
tricks.
technique.
Xia
The Ghost
Yan is
Doctor's
obviously
eyes
trying
narrowed,
to make fun of the
sharp
devil
and
class.
incisive. I
Teleportation
believe in your
ability,
secret technique,
but the other students,
I'm
the
afraid
Ghost
they will
Doctor
fall
would
into
never
the
make a
evil
mistake.
hands of the intermediate profound
Even
class.
if tens of thousands of years
Shang
had passed,
Wanfang frowned
he would
and
never
spoke
forget.
again.
These
This
were their
time,
brothers
his
from back
concern
then.
was even
He
more
stopped
obvious.
his train of thought, his
I
eyes
just don't want
revealing
to
a
see
bit
you
of
get
urgency.
hurt. When
If
Yi-Qing
he was able to
Luo
find
heard
out
that,
the origin
she
of the
couldn't
secret
help
art
but
from
burst out
Yi-Qing
laughing.
Luo.
Perhaps he might be able to find
This
those
pair
few
of
brothers
brother
of
and
his.
sister were truly blood
But
related.
Ghost Doctor's words had
One
already
or
blocked
two
Yi-Qing
disgusting
Luo's way
people
out.
in such a simple way.
What does it have to do with
For
you?
the Ghost Doctor to be able to
Yi-Qing
accurately
Luo
name the
squinted her
secret
cold
technique,
eyes as her
as
lips
well as the
curled
creator of this
disapprovingly.
secret technique.
Firstly, she
Devil
naturally
class
had a
isn't
deep
led by me,
understanding of
but
secret
if the brothers in
techniques.
Devil class are willing to take
Yi-Qing
part,
Luo
I will
shouldn't try
follow
to use
along.
rubbish to bluff him.
Secondly,
Before
Yi-Qing
the Devil
Luo
class
muttered to
can
herself for a
participate,
moment as she
class
pursed her
monitor
pink
Xia
lips
must be able
slightly,
to fulfill the
secretly
requirements
guessing
that
how
I have
she should
raised.
explain the origin of the blink
Thirdly,
movement's secret
since you
art.
looked down on the Devil class,
She naturally
don't show
couldn't
up
tell
in front of
anyone
me,
about the
after
Azure
all.
Dew bracelets.
I'm also a
After
student
all,
of the Devil
this
class.
thing did not belong to this world.
Shang Wanfang kept
Moreover,
saying that he didn't
if
want
news of
Yi-Qing
this were
Luo to
spread,
get hurt and
with her
so
current
on.
strength,
She would have
his
no
words
way
were
of
filled
guarding
with
the Azure
concern.
Dew bracelet.
But these words,
After pondering
weren't
for
they
some
looking
time,
down on Devil
Yi-Qing
class from
Luo
the bottom of his
decisively
heart?
decided to drag that
Since
evildoer
he
of
looked
hers
down on
out.
them,
What was the point of putting
soldiers
on
are
airs in
trained
front of
for
her
a day
to be used in a moment?
Yi-Qing Luo originally
If she
didn't want
didn't
to
make
waste her
use of saliva
saliva
on
on
Shen's
Shen's
identity now, when would she be able
But
to do
upon
so?
thinking that she would be harassed
She
by
nodded her
others
head
because
as
of
she
this
gave
matter,
a bashful
she
smile.
might as well say
That is
everything
indeed
out
the
at
blink
once.
movement's secret art. I have some friendship with the Overlord and he felt that my profound grade is too low, making me easily bullied, so he taught me this secret art, so that I can use it to escape. The Ghost Doctor's brows creased. Overlord? Yi-Qing Luo nodded her head repeatedly. That's right, it's DMO Xian. Decisively aim her target at DMO Xian. The Ghost Doctor remained silent as his eyelids drooped down, muttering softly, Overlord. Overlord. After muttering for some time, he raised his head with an agitated look as his brows creased. You're talking about that Imperial Palace's palace lord who had recently risen. People call him Overlord, DMO Xian? What? There was actually someone in this world who didn't know DMO Xian? Chapter 413. The so-called legend, wasn't it something which everyone in the world didn't know about and knew about? She thought that Ghost Doctor was talking about DMO Xian because he was afraid of DMO Xian's power. She had not expected. Ghost Doctor was thinking, who on earth was DMO Xian? Alright, Ghost Doctor's world only consisted of refining pills and no other miscellaneous stuff. The next time you see that fellow from the Imperial Palace, ask him to come and see me. Ghost Doctor's next sentence was shocking. Yiqing Luo's mouth turned into an O shape once again. He was indeed Ghost Doctor, even when facing Dmo Xian, he totally disregarded him. No, now wasn't the time to be tangled about whether Ghost Doctor recognized Dmo Xian or not, but Ghost Doctor wanted to meet Dmo Xian. Then wouldn't the matter of her pushing the blame to Dmo Xian be exposed? But since Ghost Doctor had already said so, Yiqing Luo could only brace herself as she gave a few dry laughs. No problem, Senior Ghost Doctor's request, even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames, I will definitely do it for you. The blame which she pushed out, even if she had to kneel down, she had to push it down. Towards Yiqing Luo's talkative words, Ghost Doctor's expression didn't change at all. His gaze swept across the pill refining room and discovered that not only were the medicinal cabinets pasted neatly with medicinal herbs' names, even the messy bookshelves were stacked neatly. It had only been a few hours. This young lady's actions were rather fast. It seemed like she knew a lot about medicine refinement. Today, because he saw Yiqing Luo displaying her blink movement's secret art, he appeared to help her out of her predicament, saying that he would take her in as his disciple. But at this moment, he felt that his decision was simply right. Although it was a little troublesome, but if he took in a young lady with an extremely strong innate talent in pill refining, then it would save a lot of time in future. Alright, that's all for today, you can go back now. When Ghost Doctor turned his head back, he resumed his cold and aloof look. Saying that, he seemed to have thought of something as his brows creased into a bundle. Take your hand out. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was going on, but she still stretched out her hand. Ghost Doctor placed his hand on her pulse and helped to take her pulse. Your body's recovery ability isn't bad at all. If there's no accident, take another medicinal pill tonight and you'll be able to recover completely. Ghost Doctor took her pulse and casually waved Yiqing Luo's hand away. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as her face revealed joy. He thought that he would need 3 to 5 days to fully recover, but he didn't expect that he would be completely healed tonight. The Ghost Doctor's elixirs, as well as the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the spiritual qi treasured land, were of great help to her internal injuries. Tomorrow, the academy will be on holiday for 3 days. Memorize all these books. Ghost Doctor walked to the front of the bookshelf and his gaze swept across the neatly arranged bookshelf as he casually picked out 3 books and threw them towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo caught it firmly and lowered her head to take a look. Of these 3 books, one was an introduction to rare medicinal herbs and their locations, another was a recipe for medicinal pills, and the last one was the detailed steps of refining medicinal pills. It was an entry-level book for refining medicine. Although the current Yiqing Luo had already reached the alchemist level of refining pills, but she was after all a half-baked alchemist and her alchemy foundation was still not enough. These books could help her consolidate her foundation. No matter what, no matter how talented one was, one's foundation was the most important. If one's foundation wasn't strong enough, even if one reached the peak, as long as someone pushed slightly from below, it was very likely that they would fall. It was like building a house. If the foundation wasn't strong enough, if there was an earthquake or a strong gale, this house would easily collapse. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as she kept those 3 books. Chapter 4:14. When Yiqing Luo walked down from the first story of the library pavilion, the administrator who had been fidgeting restlessly at the management counter immediately went up to welcome her. That fierce and rough face now carried a cautious expression. Yi, classmate Yi. When the surrounding students saw this, they all revealed a puzzled expression. Why was the administrator so respectful towards Yiqing Luo? As though he was afraid of Yiqing Luo? This must be a misconception. One must know that the library pavilion administrator was famous for his bad temper. He would shout at the students if there was any disagreement, and almost half of the students in the academy had been ravaged by his rough voice, which was like a bell. But now, he was actually being so submissive in front of a new student, and a new student from Devil class. Yiqing Luo noticed the surrounding students' gazes and knew that Lu Xuelan and the others were so frightened that they left directly, so she didn't dare to reveal the fact that she was Ghost Doctor's disciple. After all, Lu Xuelon and the others hated Yi Qing Luo to the core. They were very clear that Yi Qing Luo had many enemies, so how could they possibly reveal the fact that Ghost Doctor was backing her up? Yi Qing Luo retracted her gaze and curled her lips towards the administrator. Everything will be fine as usual. The administrator responded and stood up to send Yi Qing Luo out. This action attracted many students' guesses. After Yi Qing Luo walked out of the library pavilion, she headed towards the devil class's direction. It was nearing the time for devil class's training. Yi Qing Luo was thinking about the matter of accepting the intermediate profound class to participate in the class confrontation. Although Qiao Jin had already agreed to it, but Long Yunzhan was after all devil class's class monitor, so she still had to talk to him about it. The minute she entered the second door, she heard a lady's crisp voice coming from the training ground. Your battle power isn't bad at all. Do you want to come again? This voice sounded unfamiliar. Devil class had new students again? On the training ground, most of the students had already arrived. Everyone didn't warm up like usual, but gathered in a circle, as though their emotions were ignited, as they waved their arms and shouted. Indistinctly, there were some low shouts and collision sounds from a fight. Not long later, two figures were seen flying out from the crowd, as they rolled onto the ground. The students who had gathered in a circle were shouting excitedly, as they complained to the students who had been sent flying. The two students rubbed their waists and waved their hands. No more, no more. We're convinced. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes, and coincidentally, because those two students were sent flying, the students started to move to the two sides, opening up a path. Yi Qing Luo saw a petite young lady dressed in the academy uniform being wrapped up by the crowd. With one hand on her waist, her delicate and exquisite face revealed a complacent smile. Her pitch-black watery eyes flashed with the craftiness of a cat. Yi Qing Luo frowned. This was not a student from the devil class. But he looked a little familiar. Just as she was about to step forward to inquire about the situation, Yi Qing Luo's chest suddenly surged with a scorching feeling. Her profound heart jade actually started to burn brilliantly in her chest. She stopped in her tracks and covered her chest. Looking at that young lady again, Yi Qing Luo was stunned. He was so stunned that he even forgot the burning sensation in his chest. Behind the young girl, a black shadow rose up, like a guardian god, closely following the young girl. What shocked Yi Qing Luo the most was that black shadow was a gigantic phantom of a beast, faintly discernible. That was a cat, a pitch-black agile cat. Las Luo, that is the bloodline of the Beastman race. In her mind, Old Man Sung's voice was heard. After the Beastman race transform into human form, every time they battle, they will summon their own bloodline, and this is also the bloodline which the contractor will inherit. Chapter 4:15. Old Man Sung's voice was low. Generally speaking, humans can't see that shadow. If the shadow is seen and the enemy directly attacks it, it will cause damage to the original body. His voice revealed some doubt. How can you see the black cat shadow? Yi Qing Luo also had doubts in her heart. All of a sudden, her profound heart jade became incomparably hot. When she looked at that young girl again, she could already see the black cat shadow. Could it be related to the profound heart jade? This profound heart jade did not refer to the profound heart jade that Dmo Xian had formed for her. Because it seemed that before Dmo Xian formed the profound heart jade for her, she could already see through the profound grades of Yuchiya and the other trash, as well as the profound heart jade level. And every time, this kind of heat would be transmitted from her chest. What exactly was going on? The young girl in the crowd, because she had defeated many students, was feeling proud of herself when she felt someone staring at her. Following the gaze, when she saw Yi Qing Luo's face, the young girl smiled even more brilliantly. Elder sister, I finally see you. That young girl skipped and dashed towards Yi Qing Luo. That pair of watery cat-like eyes sparkled with obvious excitement. Yi Qing Luo discovered that when the young girl ran over, the black cat shadow behind her gradually disappeared. It seemed that only during battle, this bloodline shadow would appear to provide the young girl with strength. The young girl's hand, hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Elder sister, thanks to you saving me, I was able to escape this calamity. Kitty has nothing to repay you. From now on I will always follow by elder sister's side and protect elder sister. The young girl's soft hand and that intimate aura, Yiqing Luo didn't have the slightest bit of repulsion. That pair of black eyes overflowing with starlight didn't have the slightest bit of hypocrisy. The beast man race's little cat beast. Where were her ears? And that tail? Yiqing Luo's gaze swept over her head and indeed saw that her two black furry ears were hidden under her hair, and that black tail behind her was also curled up, hidden under her uniform. From this look, she was no different from a human. Oh right, elder sister, I still haven't introduced myself. The young girl smiled sweetly, her eyes sparkling with a lively luster. My name is Kitty Li. It's Li as in Lioli, not Li as in fox. She tilted her head and smiled. Big sister, you can call me Kitty big sister, you don't have to introduce yourself. I know big sister, you're a really, really amazing person. All the big brothers and sisters in the class really admire big sister. Hearing Kitty Li's words, the surrounding students turned their faces away in embarrassment. No one had expected that Kitty Li would actually say out those words about them worshipping Yiqing Luo behind her back, right in front of her face. Looking at those students' distressed looks, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly softened. A hint of gentleness also appeared on her beautiful face. Her delicate facial features were extremely gentle. It could be said that she was a peerless beauty. The surrounding students were dumbfounded for a moment. Sister, you're so beautiful. Kitty Li's curved eyebrows revealed envy as she rubbed her head against Yiqing Luo's arm. Kitty Cat likes beautiful sister. Do you want to contract Kitty Cat? The soft touch on his arm was like a kitten rubbing against him. Contract her? This was the reason why Yiqing Luo chose to save her right from the start. To be able to contract a beast man and obtain the cat beast's bloodline inheritance, her own strength would also receive a huge upgrade. According to the current situation, Kitty Li's ability seemed to be not bad. She was actually able to challenge several students alone. Then why was she in the heavenly training forest and met with the evil schemes of the high profound class students? Chapter 4:16. Contract? The surrounding students looked at each other in dismay. They only knew that the contract was used on magical beasts. Could it be that humans could contract as well? Everyone didn't think too much about it, only thinking that this young lady wanted to follow beside Yiqing Luo, to be her follower. Who on earth are you? Suddenly, a cold voice was heard from the other end of the training ground. Tong Ziqing's expression was icy cold, her brows knitted into a bundle as she stared at Kitty Li with vigilance. From the skills you displayed today, your profound grade must be above Mystic Profound 6th grade. And you don't panic in the face of danger, so you should be someone who is used to fighting. Most importantly, your speed is not wrong, and your reaction is extremely strong. Why would you be caught by the high profound class students in the heavenly training forest, and look so weak? Tong Ziqing's words completely voiced out the doubts in Yiqing Luo's heart. Tong Ziqing didn't understand why Yiqing Luo risked being found out by the high profound class students to save Kitty Li. Moreover, Yiqing Luo was seriously injured by Yiqing Qian's earth profound grade pressure, and all this was because of Kitty Li. If it wasn't for Kitty Li, Yiqing Luo wouldn't be seriously injured, and wouldn't be tested by Yiqing Qian, and wouldn't be punished by the instructors to tidy up the books in the library pavilion, and wouldn't be so helpless when facing the killers. Yiqing Luo's current reputation in the academy made her angry. If it wasn't for the assistant class monitor who had been persuading everyone, she might not be able to hold it in and directly beat up those people who were spreading rumors. Kitty Li let go of Yiqing Luo's arm, tilted her head and blinked her bright and crafty eyes, because Kitty Li is hungry. Hungry? What kind of excuse was that? Everyone couldn't believe it, but Kitty Li explained seriously. Kitty Li was locked in that lousy forest the minute she arrived at Nirvana Realm, and had nothing to eat. Kitty Lee has been hungry for a long, long, long time. As she said that, she used her hands to gesture to open it up and repeated, so long, several times. Kitty Lee is so hungry that she can't move. How would she have the energy to run? That group of ferocious people couldn't see how cute Kitty was, so they beat Kitty up without any explanation. Kitty Lee's pink lips pouted slightly, showing some displeasure. If it wasn't for Big Sister saving Kitty Lee, those people would definitely want to bring Kitty Lee back to cook. Everyone was dumbfounded. What a heavy taste. Nowadays, even if there were people who ate human flesh, these students wouldn't dare to eat it in the academy. It was also because of these shocking words that the students did not pay much attention to the meaning of the words, just arrived in the Nirvana realm, that Kitty Lee said. Ahem. Among the students, Bai Ming Lu raised her hand weakly. Kitty didn't lie. When you brought her back, apart from the superficial wounds on her body, she did have an empty stomach for a long time. Tong Ziqing's expression became even more ashen. She stared at Kitty Lee for a long time before she snorted coldly and turned around to walk towards the small path of the academy. Kitty Lee, don't take it to heart, Sister Ziqing is just jealous of you. Nai Roa Pan looked at the direction where Tong Ziqing left, and couldn't help but laughed. Now the one who worships Madame Qing Luo the most is Sister Ziqing. Now that she saw you monopolizing Madame Qing Luo, she doesn't feel good. Kitty Lee smiled till her eyes curved, and once again held onto Yi Qing Luo's arm. I want to form a contract with Sister, and in future I will not let go of Sister. Yi Qing Luo was helpless, she wasn't a man, to be snatched here and there by two beauties out of jealousy. Could it be that she wanted to kill both men and women? Activate the 3 palace and 6 courtyards mode? Chapter 417. Alright, the academy doesn't know how many students there are in the devil class. Since Kitty Cat is here, then stay in the devil class. Yi Qing Luo rubbed Kitty Cat's head. She knew Kitty Cat's real identity, so naturally she believed in Kitty Cat's innocence. Although the beast men were half human half beast, but to Old Man Song, the beast men basically lived alone and would not intentionally blend into the human world. Deep in their bones, they still had the purity of the beast men. It's time for training, go ahead and train. Yi Qing Luo was about to head towards the academy's small path when another student called out to her from behind. Qing Luo, I heard that. You've already agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later, is that true? That student stared at Yi Qing Luo eagerly as his hands were clasped together, extremely nervous. When the surrounding students heard this topic, the atmosphere instantly ignited. As Yi Qing Luo was seriously injured and was assassinated by the killer, these students stayed in the academy today to ensure that Yi Qing Luo was safe and sound. Because of that, they didn't know what happened in the academy today. The moment they heard the words interclass competition, the students' expressions changed. Interclass competition. This was a competition that all the classes wanted to participate in with all their might. If they were successful, they would be able to advance to a higher level class and obtain generous rewards, as well as receive the respect and admiration from everyone in the academy. More importantly, this was a proof of ability. For so many years, Devil Class's students had been hiding in the Devil Class, immersing themselves in cultivation and training to advance. Even if it was actual combat training, it would be one's own people fighting against one's own people. There was no sense of satisfaction at all. As for the Heavenly Academy's annual interclass competition, Devil Class's students wanted to take part in it so much that they almost went crazy. However, their class monitor had always rejected their requests with the excuse that the time wasn't right. Today, upon hearing that Yi Qing Luo had agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later, all of them jumped up in joy, as though they wanted to leap 3 feet into the air. I have indeed agreed to it. Yi Qing Luo lightly curled her lips. After the students got her affirmation, they couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts as they rushed forward and surrounded Yi Qing Luo. Just as everyone wanted to lift Yi Qing Luo up and shout excitedly, they heard Yi Qing Luo spitting out 2 words. But. Everyone's hearts were in their throats as they stared at her. As for whether I can participate or not, firstly, I still need to seek the class monitor's approval. Secondly, I still need to see if the class monitor from class Xian, 2, Xia, can agree to my request. Thirdly, Yiqing Luo paused for a moment. Her voice suddenly became much louder and revealed a tone like she was trying to abduct a little brother. This is the most important point, is within these 8 months, can your strength reach the level of surpassing the high profound class and win first place in one fell swoop? When the third point was mentioned, the smiles on all the students' faces gradually froze. All of them fell silent. If they were to win against the intermediate profound class, or tie with the high profound class, they would have full assurance and confidence. But to surpass the high profound class and win first place, one must know if the devil class really won the championship. The academy would definitely allow the powerful and mysterious devil class to participate in the competition. Chapter 4:18. If Devil Class won, it would be equivalent to smearing the Heavenly Academy's name. Their original thoughts were merely to take part in the interclass competition, to go through actual combat with the students from other classes, to raise their own ability. To them, promotion or ranking wasn't important at all. What they wanted was to prove to the entire Academy's teachers and students that they weren't waste, and that they were strong enough to support the heavens. That was all. But Yiqing Luo's target was to win the championship. This to them was an extremely huge pressure. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the difficulty on their faces, as her voice remained calm. If you have the confidence, then work hard to raise your own training in these 8 months. Lulu and I will refine supplementary medicinal pills for you, and in terms of training, it will depend on your individual hard work and innate talent. The students became silent. They had no confidence. Do you know why I insist on you winning the championship? Just as the training grounds were in a state of silence, Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice rang leisurely. The students raised their heads as they looked at Yiqing Luo. Whereas at the other end of the training grounds, Xiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi didn't make a sound. In their hearts, devil class's students indeed had great growth, which was comparable to the high profound class, but in terms of actual combat training and strategy, they were far from the high profound class. Locking these students in devil class to train had its pros and cons. Just like previously, they limited these students to raising their individual ability, but neglected everyone's ability to work together as a team. Now there was another huge problem placed in front of them. The only actual combat training for these students, other than their classmates, was the magical beasts in the heavenly training forest. If they were to take part in the interclass competition, to win the championship, it was probably impossible. Because you are devil class's students. Yiqing Luo's gaze was as calm as still water, without a single ripple. Her tone was also calm, but in that tone, there was something indistinctly following her voice, scuttling their hearts. Devil class is Heavenly Academy's disgrace, a waste class in everyone's eyes. If you want to clear your name, to announce to the entire continent, or even Nirvana realm, that you are not waste, the only way is. It's fine if you don't cry out, but once you cry out, it's shocking. The students' hearts seemed to have been struck by something fiercely, as they trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent and her tone was very calm. However, for some unknown reason, those 9 simple words caused their hearts to surge with excitement. The reason why I agreed to the interclass competition proposed by class monitor Xia is because I believe in you guys. Even I haven't given up on you, so why would you give up on yourselves? What is your dream? What was the target? You just want to be in the limelight during the interclass competition and suppress the other classes to prove that devil class isn't trash? What happens after that? Get beaten up by the students from the high profound class and the class of gods and return to the devil class? Is this enough to prove his name? No. It doesn't count. If they were defeated by the high profound class or class of gods, their so-called reputation would just be a joke. In the end, he suffered a crushing defeat and left the arena with his tail between his legs. Was it enough to surpass the intermediate profound class? No. They were not satisfied. How could he be satisfied? After being a waste for so many years, he finally managed to get into the Heavenly Academy but was assigned to a waste class where even the masters looked down on him. Just to surpass the intermediate profound class, how could he be satisfied? As long as you have a strong belief, believe in your own self-confidence, have your own target, and want to become a strong person who is revered by others, then give me a good answer. Chapter 4:19. Although the students didn't reply, but their eyes were burning with hope, as they were extremely fervent. You still have 8 months' time, and in these 8 months, we will use all means to train you. Yiqing Luo's vision finally fell onto Qiao Jin, as her lips curled into an extremely shallow arc. Qiao Jin understood her meaning, as he shrugged his shoulders indifferently, indicating to her to do whatever she wanted. Long Yunzhan had arranged Yiqing Luo into the class committee, and in this period of time, Yiqing Luo's ability was obvious to all. Now that Yiqing Luo had started to train everyone, they naturally didn't have any objections. Yiqing Luo then retracted her vision, sweat and hard work, then you can exchange for what you want. No matter how tough the future is, how difficult it is, as long as you persevere on, what awaits you will be a sky full of red clouds. When her words fell, Yiqing Luo paused for a moment. The entire training ground was so silent that even the students' hurried breathing could be heard clearly. Kitty Lee was infected by these words, as her cat-like eyes widened, as she stared at Yiqing Luo in adoration. Yiqing Luo seemed to have done it intentionally, as she gave them time to think. Approximately half a quarter of an hour later, Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards, as she said calmly, "Of course, it's useless to say all these too early. The key is whether class monitor Xia can accept the conditions that I raised. Train well, I'll go have a chat with class monitor." The students lowered their heads, not saying a word. It was until the moment when Yiqing Luo turned around, deafening sounds erupted from her back. "We have confidence. We want to welcome the sky full of red clouds." 10 over young men and young ladies' voices were orderly and loud. In everyone's eyes, they were already disdainful waste. No matter how miserable could it be? No matter how miserable could it be? So what if they failed? They were aiming for first place to take part in the interclass competition, they just wanted to win. Yiqing Luo didn't turn back, as she could feel the passion from those young men and young ladies behind her. She strode towards the small path, as the smile on her lips grew wider and wider. On the way to the class committee room, she met Tong Ziqing, who was sitting by the side in a daze. Yiqing Luo spoke softly, as she persuaded her to return back to training, and repeated the matter of her preparing devil class to take part in the interclass competition. Although Tong Ziqing's expression was still ugly, she still obediently returned to the training ground. When Yiqing Luo reached the class committee room, she indeed saw Long Yunzhan sitting in front of the square table, bending over the table to write something. Hearing the noise, he didn't even raise his head. "Sit. You know the purpose of my visit?" Yiqing Luo sat opposite him. Long Yunzhan put away his brush and put it aside. "You decide, I have no objections." Ever since the conversation with Yiqing Luo yesterday, Long Yunzhan was no longer disturbed by the entanglement in his heart, as he resumed his usual calm and serene self. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. "Since that's the case, then I won't be unreasonable and evasive. Tomorrow is a holiday, and for the 3 days of holiday, I've decided to set up a mercenary group and let everyone take on missions." This method reminded her of the Silver Plate mercenary group she met in the Magical Beast Forest. If these students were to form a mercenary group and take on missions from the Mercenary Union, this kind of training in the wild would be much more useful than training in the training grounds. Any kind of training was more effective than actual combat training. Long Yunzhan was startled, his brows slightly furrowed. "Mercenary group?" Yiqing Luo nodded. Long Yunzhan had never thought of bringing these students out of the academy for training. Perhaps it was because he had no memory of this world, and the only sense of security he had was Heavenly Academy. Perhaps he was worried that Devil Class's students' ability would be exposed too early. Chapter 420. Long Yun-Jan pondered for a moment and slowly nodded. If it's you, there shouldn't be a problem. The underlying meaning was that he had agreed to Yi-Qing Luo's suggestion. However, you will still be the leader. The vice leader and the other positions will be handed over to Xiao Yi and the others. Towards her, the backbone of the students was more inclined towards Long Yun-Jan. After all, Long Yun-Jan was the one who had truly saved their lives. Long Yun-Jan had no objections. After discussing with Long Yun-Jan, Yi-Qing Luo headed over to the ectoplasm treasure land. According to what the ghost doctor said, she just had to take another pill tonight and her body would be completely recovered. There were only 3 days of holidays, so the Devil Class had to make the best use of their time and not waste any cultivation time. She had to make a full recovery before tomorrow. After entering the ectoplasm treasured land, Yi-Qing Luo extracted her consciousness into the azure dew bracelet. Old Man Sung checked Yi-Qing Luo's pulse and couldn't help but nod his head as he sighed silently. Ghost Doctor. She's indeed Ghost Doctor. Hearing this tone, Yi-Qing Luo squinted her eyes. Old Man Sung, you know Senior Ghost Doctor? Old Man Sung's hand on Yi-Qing Luo's wrist paused for a moment before he withdrew his hand. I don't know. You don't know him? Did he really think that she had just met him? Previously, when he'd first met the ghost doctor in the medicine refining room, Old Man Sung had clearly acted as if he didn't recognize her. But ever since he heard the ghost doctor's name, his entire person seemed to have changed. In addition to this sentence, it would be strange if they didn't know him. Old Man Sung saw Yi-Qing Luo staring at him with a pair of suspicious eyes. He immediately turned his head away in annoyance and lightly landed on the stone bed that was constructed from spiritual qi and laid down. Little girl, take good care of your body and cultivate. Don't ask too many questions. Since Old Man Sung wasn't willing to answer, Yi-Qing Luo naturally wouldn't force him to ask. She sat cross-legged, closed her eyes, and began to mobilize the profound energy in her profound jade heart. On one hand, she cultivated, and on the other hand, she used spiritual energy to nourish her internal injuries. What she didn't know was that the moment she closed her eyes, Old Man Sung, who originally had his back facing her, turned around. Spiritual qi rose in spirals, and the face under the white beard was dyed with a faint trace of melancholy. Ghost Doctor, who would have thought that the old man from the herbal sect was actually the ghost doctor? Could it be that it was really the will of the heavens? The next day, after Yi-Qing Luo opened her eyes, she stretched her limbs and felt relaxed. There seemed to be a flow of air flowing through her body. She felt light as a feather and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. She tried to circulate the profound qi in her body, but there was no obstruction. Her internal injuries, as well as the scars on her arm which were caused by Yi-Qing Qian's whip, had completely recovered. After coming out from the spiritual qi treasure land, the students of the Devil Class had already packed their belongings and were saying their goodbyes to one another, preparing to go home. The academy was on a holiday, so the last time to seal the academy gates was at noon. Because of this, the students had to pack their things early in the morning and strive to leave the academy before noon. Otherwise, they would be forcefully driven out of the academy by the guards. If one was unlucky and stayed longer than noon, it would be recorded as a minor demerit. By the time Yi-Qing Luo came out, most of the students had already said their goodbyes. On seeing Yi-Qing Luo walking over, Xiao Jin caressed his throat as he gave a light cough. The originally bustling training grounds suddenly became incomparably quiet. All the students reflexively stood in line, their backs straight as they looked at Xiao Jin. This was a habit which they had developed over the years. Yi-Qing Luo slowly walked to Xiao Jin's side, as her charming eyes swept past each and every one of those childish faces. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.